What is the process known as hydrocarbon cracking?
Cracking is a process that uses heat to decompose complex substances. Hydrocarbon cracking is the decomposition by heat, with or without catalysts, of petroleum or heavy petroleum fractions, groupings, to give materials of lower boiling points. Thermal cracking, developed by William Burton, 1865 to 1954, in 1913. Uses heat and pressure to break some of the large heavy hydrocarbon molecules into smaller gasoline-grade ones. The cracked hydrocarbons are then sent to a flash chamber where the various fractions are separated. Thermal cracking not only doubles the gasoline yield, but has improved gasoline quality, producing gasoline components with good anti-knock characteristics, no premature fuel ignition.
What were the goals of the Montreal Protocol?
The Montreal Protocol was signed in 1987 by members of the United Nations to phase out and reduce production of CFCs and other ozone-damaging chemicals by 50% by 1998. Amendments and revisions to the Montreal Protocol were made in 1990, 1992, and 1997 to include other chemicals and accelerate the phase-out of certain chemicals. Production of CFCs, carbon tetrachloride, and methyl chloroform was phased out by 1996 in the United States and other highly developed countries.
How can plastics be made biodegradable?
Plastic does not rust or rot. This is an advantage in its usage. But when it comes to disposal of plastic, the advantage turns into a liability. Degradable plastic has starch in it so that it can be attacked by starch-eating bacteria to eventually disintegrate the plastic into bits. Chemically degradable plastic can be broken up with a chemical solution that dissolves it. Used in surgery, biodegradable plastic stitches slowly dissolve in the body fluids. Photodegradable plastic contains chemicals that disintegrate over a period of 1 to 3 years when exposed to light. 1/4 of the plastic yolks used to package beverages are made from a plastic called E-collet, which is photodegradable.
What was the first scientific journal?
The first scientific journal was Journal d'Escavans, published and edited by Denis de Salo, 1626 to 1669. The first issue appeared on January 5, 1665. It contained reviews of books, obituaries of famous men, experimental findings in chemistry and physics, and other general interest information. Publication was suspended following the 13th issue in March 1665. Although the official reason for the suspension of the publication was that De Salo was not submitting his proofs for official approval prior to publication. There is speculation that the real reason for the suspension was his criticism of the work of important people, papal policy, and the old orthodox views of science. It was reinstated in January 1666 and continued as a weekly publication until 1724. The journal was then published on a monthly basis until the French Revolution. In 1792. It was published briefly in 1797 under the title Journal des Savants. It began regular publication again in 1816 under the auspices of the Institut de France, evolving as a general interest publication.
What is an expert system?
An expert system is a type of highly specialized software that analyzes complex problems in a particular field and recommends possible solutions based on information previously programmed into it. The person who develops an expert system first analyzes the behavior of a human expert in a given field, then inputs all the explicit rules resulting from their study into the system. Expert systems are used in equipment repair, insurance planning, training, medical diagnosis, and other areas.
What are the primary colors in light?
Color is determined by the wavelength of visible light. The distance between one crest of the light wave and the next. Those colors that blend to form white light are from shortest wavelength to longest: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. All these monochromatic colors, except indigo, occupy large areas of the spectrum. The entire range of wavelengths produced when a beam of electromagnetic radiation is broken up. These colors can be seen when a light beam is refracted through a prism. Some consider the primary colors to be 6 monochromatic colors that occupy large areas of the spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. Many physicists recognize 3 primary colors: red, green, and blue. All other colors can be made from these by adding 2 primary colors in various proportions. Within the spectrum, scientists have discovered 55 distinct hues. Infrared and ultraviolet rays at each end of the spectrum are invisible to the human eye.
How do lead-acid batteries work?
Lead-acid batteries consist of positive and negative lead plates suspended in a diluted sulfuric acid solution called an electrolyte. Everything is contained in a chemically and electrically inert case. As the cell discharges, sulfur molecules from the electrolyte bond with the lead plates, releasing excess electrons. The flow of electrons is called electricity.
Is washing dishes by hand better for the environment than using an automatic dishwasher?
Dishwashers often save energy and water compared to hand washing. Depending on the brand, dishwashers typically consume 7.5 to 12 gallons. 28 to 45 liters of water per normal wash. Hand washing a day's worth of dishes may use up to 15 gallons, 57 liters, of water. One university study found that dishwashers consume about 37% less water than washing by hand. Several steps can be taken for additional energy savings when using a dishwasher. The setting on a home's water heater can be turned down to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. 49 degrees Celsius, if the dishwasher has a booster heater. While some machines feature a no-heat, air-dry setting. Simply opening the door after the final rinse to let the dishes air dry will save energy.
What are the male reproductive organs and structures?
The male reproductive organs and structures are the testes, a duct system that includes the epididymis and the vas deferens. The accessory glands, including the seminal vesicles and prostate gland, and the penis. The testes are the male gonads. They produce the male reproductive cells called sperm.
When was jet stream discovered?
A jet stream is a flat and narrow tube of air that moves more rapidly than the surrounding air. Discovered by World War II bomber pilots flying over Japan and the Mediterranean Sea. Jet streams have become important with the advent of airplanes capable of cruising at over 30,000 feet, 9,144 meters. The currents of air flow from west to east and are usually a few miles deep. Up to 100 miles, 160 kilometers, wide, and well over 1,000 miles, 1,600 kilometers, in length. The air current must flow at over 57.5 miles, 92 kilometers, per hour. There are two polar jet streams, one in each hemisphere. They move between 30 and 70 degrees latitude, occur at altitudes of 25,000 to 35,000 feet. 7,620 to 10,668 meters, and achieve maximum speeds of over 230 miles, 368 kilometers, per hour. The subtropical jet streams, again one per hemisphere, wander between 20 and 50 degrees latitude. They are found at altitudes of 30,000 to 45,000 feet. 9,144 to 13,715 meters, and have speeds of over 345 miles, 552 kilometers, per hour.
What type of cell is found in nerve tissue?
Neurons are specialized cells that produce and conduct impulses, or nerve signals. Neurons consist of a cell body, which contains a nucleus and two types of cytoplasmic extensions, dendrites and axons. Dendrites are thin, highly branched extensions that receive signals. Axons are tubular extensions that transmit nerve impulses away from the cell body, often to another neuron. Nerve tissue also has supporting cells, called neuroglia or glial cells, which nourish the neurons. Insulate the dendrites and axons, and promote quicker transmission of signals.
What are brown fields?
The Environmental Protection Agency defines brownfields as abandoned, idled, or underused industrial or commercial sites where expansion or redevelopment is complicated by real or perceived environmental contamination. Real estate developers perceive brownfields as inappropriate sites for redevelopment. There are approximately 450,000 brownfields in the United States, with the heaviest concentrations being in the Northeast and Midwest.
What are succulents?
A group of more than 30 plant families including the amaryllis, lily, and cactus families forms what is known as the succulents, from the Latin term succulentus, meaning fleshy or juicy. Most members of the group are resistant to droughts as they are dry weather plants. Even when they live in moist, rainy environments, these plants need very little water.
How deadly is Amanita phalloides?
The poisonous mushroom Amanita phalloides has a fatality rate of about 50%. Ingestion of part of one mushroom may be sufficient to cause death. Over 100 fatalities occur each year from eating poisonous mushrooms, with more than 90% caused by the Amanita phalloides group.
What was the first U.S. national park?
On March 1, 1872, an act of Congress signed by Ulysses S. Grant, 1822–1885, established Yellowstone National Park as the first national park. The action inspired a worldwide national park movement. When was the U.S.
Which chemicals constitute the human body?
About 24 elements are used by the body in its functions and processes. Potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium each occur at 0.35% or less. There are also traces of iron, cobalt, copper, manganese, iodine, zinc. fluorine, boron, aluminum, molybdenum, silicon, chromium, and selenium.
Why is Pennsylvania crude oil so highly valued?
The waxy, sweet paraffinic oils found in Pennsylvania first became prominent. Because high-quality lubricating oils and greases could be made from them. Similar grade crude oil is also found in West Virginia, eastern Ohio, and southern New York. Different types of crude oil vary in thickness and color, ranging from a thin, clear oil to a thick, tar-like substance.
Has the United States selected a national insect?
No, the United States does not have a national insect. Congress did consider naming the monarch butterfly as the national insect, but the legislation did not pass.
Who first observed that the number of rings in the cross-section of a tree trunk indicates its age?
The painter Leonardo da Vinci, 1452 to 1519, noticed this phenomenon. He also saw that the year's dampness can be determined by the space between the tree's rings. The farther apart the rings, the more moisture there was in the ground around the tree. Charles Darwin's, 1809 to 1882, ideas on evolution began to influence systems of classification during the late 19th century. The first major phylogenetic system of plant classification was proposed around the close of the 19th century. Dinator lichen, Flans and family, the natural plant families, one of the most complete phylogenetic systems of classification and still in use through the 21st century. Was published between 1887 to 1915 by the German botanists Adolf Engler, 1844 to 1930, and Karl Prantl, 1849 to 1893. Their system recognizes about 100,000 species of plants, organized by their presumed evolutionary sequence. Systems of classifications were also developed during the 20th century. Some works focused on groups of plants, especially flowering plants, rather than all plants. Charles Bessey, 1845 to 1915, was the first American scientist to publish a system of classification in the early 20th century. Cladistics is one of the newest approaches to classification. It is often defined as a set of concepts and methods for determining cladograms, which portray branching patterns of evolution.
What is a hard drive of a computer?
Hard disks, formerly called hard disk drives and more recently just hard drives, were invented in the 1950s. They are storage devices in desktop computers, laptops, servers, and mainframes. Hard disks use a magnetic recording surface to record, access, and erase data. In much the same way as magnetic tape records, plays, and erases sound or images. A read/write head, suspended over a spinning disk, is directed by the central processing unit. CPU, to the sector where the requested data is stored, or where the data is to be recorded. A hard disk uses rigid aluminum disks coated with iron oxide to store data. Data are stored in files that are named collections of bytes. The bytes could be anything from the ASCII codes for the characters of a text file to instructions. For a software application to the records of a database to the pixel colors for an image. Hard drive size ranges from several hundred gigabytes to more than 1 terabyte. A hard disk rotates from 5,400 to 7,200 revolutions per minute, RPM, and is constantly spinning. Except in laptops, which conserve battery life by spinning the hard disk only when in use. An ultrafast hard disk has a separate read/write head over each track on the disk, so that no time is lost in positioning the head over the desired track. Accessing the desired sector takes only milliseconds, the time it takes for the disk to spin to the sector. Hard drive performance is measured by data rate and seek time. Data rate is the number of bytes per second that the hard drive can deliver to the CPU. Seek time is the amount of time that elapses from when the CPU requests a file and when the first byte of the file is delivered to the CPU.
Where was the first hydroelectric power plant in the United States built?
Appleton, Wisconsin, is the site of the first hydroelectric generating plant in the United States. It was built in 1882.
When was the nucleus first described?
The Scottish botanist Robert Brown. 1773 to 1858, first named and described the nucleus in 1831, while studying orchids. Brown called this structure the nucleus, from the Latin nucula, meaning little nut or kernel.
Do fingernails and toenails grow at the same rate?
Fingernails tend to grow a little faster than toenails.
What was the first meal on the moon?
American astronauts Neil A. Armstrong and Edwin E. Aldrin Jr. ate 4 bacon squares, 3 sugar cookies, peaches, pineapple grapefruit drink, and coffee before their historic moonwalk on July 20, 1969.
How rapidly is deforestation occurring?
Agriculture, excessive logging, and fires are major causes of deforestation. Afforestation and the natural expansion of forests help to decrease the rate of deforestation. The rate of deforestation has decreased from 16 million hectares, 61,776 square miles, per year during the 1990s to 13 million hectares, 50,193 square miles, per year in the decade 2000 to 2010, according to preliminary data for the decade. The net change in forest area for 2000 to 2010 is estimated at minus 5.2 million hectares, 20,007 square miles, per year, an area about the size of Costa Rica. Down from minus 8.3 million hectares, 32,046 square miles, per year in the 1990s.
Which birds lay the largest and smallest eggs?
The elephant bird, Epiornis maximus, an extinct flightless bird of Madagascar. Also known as the giant bird or roc, laid the largest known bird eggs. Some of these eggs measured as much as 13.5 inches, 34 centimeters, in length and 9.5 inches, 24 centimeters, in diameter. The largest egg produced by any living bird is that of the North African ostrich, Struthiocamelus. The average size is 6 to 8 inches, 15 to 20.5 centimeters, in length and 4 to 6 inches, 5 to 15 centimeters, in diameter. The smallest mature egg, measuring less than 0.39 inch, 1 centimeter, in length, is that of the vervain hummingbird, Melissuga minima, of Jamaica. Generally speaking, the larger the bird, the larger the egg. However, when compared with the bird's body size, the ostrich egg is one of the smallest eggs, while the hummingbird's egg is one of the largest. The kiwi bird of New Zealand lays the largest egg. Relative to body size of any living bird, kiwis are comparable to chickens in size, but their eggs are comparable to ostrich eggs in size. The egg of a brown kiwi is 14 to 20% of the female's body weight. Its egg weighs up to 1 pound, 0.5 kilogram.
Which blood type is the rarest?
The rarest blood type is Bombay blood, subtype HH, found only in a Czechoslovakian nurse in 1961 and in a brother and sister with the surname Jalbert living in Massachusetts in 1968.
What are effective types of pollination?
Effective pollination occurs when viable pollen is transferred to a plant's stigmas. Ovule-bearing organs, or ovules, Seed precursors. Without pollination, there would be no fertilization. Since plants are immobile organisms, they usually need external agents to transport their pollen from where it is produced in the plant to where fertilization can occur. This situation produces cross-pollination, wherein one plant's pollen is moved by an agent to another plant's stigma. Some plants are able to self-pollinate, transfer their own pollen to their own stigmas. But of the two methods, cross-pollination seems more advantageous, for it allows new genetic material to be introduced. Cross-pollination agents include insects, wind, birds, mammals, and water. Many times flowers offer one or more rewards to attract these agents: sugary nectar, oil, solid food bodies, perfume, a place to sleep, or sometimes the pollen itself. Other times the plant can trap the agent into transporting the pollen. Generally, plants use color and fragrances as attractants to lure these agents. For example, a few orchids use a combination of smell and color to mimic the female of certain species of bees and wasps so successfully that the corresponding males will attempt to mate with them. Through this process, pseudocopulation, the orchids achieve pollination. While some plants cater to a variety of agents, other plants are very selective and are pollinated by a single species of insect only. This extreme pollinator specificity tends to maintain the purity of a plant species. Plant structure can accommodate the type of agent used. For example, plants such as grasses and conifers, whose pollen is carried by the wind, tend to have a simple structure lacking petals, with freely exposed and branched stigmas. To catch airborne pollen and dangling anthers, pollen-producing parts, on long filaments. This type of anther allows the light round pollen to be easily caught by the wind. These plants are found in areas such as prairies and mountains, where insect agents are rare. In contrast, semi-enclosed, non-symmetrical, long-lived flowers such as irises, roses, and snapdragons have a landing platform and nectar in the flower base to accommodate insect agents such as the bee. The sticky, abundant pollen can easily become attached to the insect to be borne away to another flower.
Why is titanium dioxide the most widely used white pigment?
Titanium dioxide, TO2, also known as titania, titanic anhydride, titanium oxide, or titanium white, has become the predominant white pigment in the world because of its high refractive index, lack of absorption of visible light, ability to be produced in the right size range, and its stability. It is the whitest known pigment, unrivaled for color, opacity, stain resistance, and durability. It is also non-toxic. The main consuming industries are paint, printing inks, plastics, and ceramics. Titanium dioxide is also used in the manufacture of floor coverings, paper, rubber, and welding rods.
What is a Mobius strip?
A Mobius strip is a surface with only one side, usually made by connecting the two ends of a rectangular strip of paper after putting a half twist, 180 degrees relative to the opposite side, in the strip. Cutting a Mobius strip in half down the center of the length of the strip results in a single band with 4 half twists. Devised by the German mathematician August Ferdinand Mobius, 1790–1868, to illustrate the properties of one-sided surfaces. It was presented in a paper that was not discovered or published until after his death. Another 19th-century German mathematician, Johann Benedict Listing, 1808–1882, developed the idea independently at the same time.
How do the costs of various fuels compare?
Fuel prices are reported in the units in which they are typically sold, for example, dollars per gallon. However, since the energy content per gallon of each fuel is different, the price paid per unit of energy is often different from the price paid per gallon. The following chart shows the average price per gallon, the average price in gasoline gallon equivalents, and the average price in dollars per million BTU as of 2009. Interest in alternative fuels increases when the actual price differential per gallon increases even if the savings is not as great on an energy equivalent basis.
What is the pollutant standard index?
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the South Coast Air Quality Management District of El Monte, California, devised the Pollutant Standard Index to monitor concentrations of pollutants in the air and inform the public concerning related health effects. The scale measures the amount of pollution in parts per million, and has been in use nationwide since 1978.
Who is the only U.S. president to receive a patent?
On May 22, 1849, 12 years before he became the 16th U.S. President, Abraham Lincoln, 1809–1865, was granted U.S. Patent Number 6,469 for a device to help steamboats pass over shoals and sandbars. The device, never tested or manufactured, had a set of adjustable buoyancy chambers made from metal and waterproof cloth, attached to the ship's sides below the water line. Bellows could fill the chambers with air to float the vessel over the shoals and sandbars. It was the only patent ever held by a United States president.
What are the highest and lowest elevations in the United States?
Named in honor of U.S. President William McKinley, 1843 to 1901, MT. McKinley, Alaska, at 20,320 feet, 6,194 meters. Is the highest point in the United States and North America. Located in central Alaska, it is part of the Alaska Range. Its south peak measures 20,320 feet, 6,194 meters. High, and the north peak is 19,470 feet, 5,931 meters, high. It boasts one of the world's largest unbroken precipices, and is the main scenic attraction at Denali National Park. Denali means the High One or the Great One and is a Native American name sometimes used for MT McKinley. MT Whitney, California, at 14,494 feet. 4,421 meters, is the highest point in the continental United States. Death Valley, California, at 282 feet, 86 meters, below sea level. Is the lowest point in the United States and in the Western Hemisphere.
What is the most widely cultivated cereal in the world?
Wheat is the most widely cultivated cereal in the world. The grain supplies a major percentage of the nutrients needed by the world's population. Wheat is one of the oldest domesticated plants, and it has been argued that it laid the foundation for Western civilization. Domesticated wheat had its origins in the Near East at least 9,000 years ago. Wheat grows best in temperate grassland biomes that receive 12 to 36 inches, 30 to 90 centimeters, of rain per year and have relatively cool temperatures. Some of the top wheat-producing countries are Argentina, Canada, China, India, the Ukraine, and the United States.
Which is the deepest cave in the United States?
Lechuguilla Cave, in Carlsbad Caverns National Park, New Mexico, is the deepest cave in the United States. Its depth is 1,565 feet, 477 meters. Unlike most caves in which carbon dioxide mixes with rainwater to produce carbonic acid, Carlsbad Caverns was shaped by sulfuric acid. The sulfuric acid was a result of a reaction between oxygen that was dissolved in groundwater and hydrogen sulfide that emanated from far below the cave's surface.
Why do lunar eclipses happen?
A lunar eclipse occurs only during a full moon when the moon is on one side of Earth. The sun is on the opposite side, and all three bodies are aligned in the same plane. In this alignment, Earth blocks the sun's rays to cast a shadow on the moon. In a total lunar eclipse, the moon seems to disappear from the sky when the whole moon passes through the umbra, or total shadow, created by Earth. A total lunar eclipse may last up to 1 hour and 40 minutes. If only part of the moon enters the umbra, a partial eclipse occurs. A penumbral eclipse takes place if all or part of the moon passes through the penumbra. Partial shadow or shade, without touching the umbra. It is difficult to detect this type of eclipse from Earth. From the moon one could see that Earth blocked only part of the sun.
How are new celestial objects named?
Many stars and planets have names that date back to antiquity. The International Astronomical Union, IAU, the professional astronomers organization, has attempted in this century to standardize names given to newly discovered celestial objects and their surface features. Stars are generally called by their traditional names, most of which are of Greek, Roman, or Arabic origin. They are also identified by the constellation in which they appear. Designated in order of brightness by Greek letters. Thus Sirius is also called Alpha Canis Majoris, which means it is the brightest star in the constellation Canis Major. Other stars are called by catalog numbers, which include the star's coordinates. Several commercial star registries exist, and for a fee you can submit a star name to them. These names are not officially recognized by the IAU. The IAU has made some recommendations for naming the surface features of the planets and their satellites. For example, features on Mercury are named for composers, poets, and writers. Features of Venus for women, and features on Saturn's moon Mimas for people and places in Arthurian legend. Comets are named for their discoverers. Newly discovered asteroids are first given a temporary designation consisting of the year of discovery plus 2 letters. The first letter indicates the half month of discovery, A equals first half of January. B equals second half of January, etc., and the second the order of discovery in that half month. Thus asteroid 2002 M was the 13th, M, asteroid discovered in the first half of March. E, in 2002. After an asteroid's orbit is determined, it is given a permanent number and its discoverer is given the honor of naming it. Asteroids have been named after such diverse things as mythological figures, Ceres, Vesta, an airline, Swissair, and the Beatles, Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, Starr.
What does the term cooling degree day mean?
It is a unit for estimating the energy needed for cooling a building. 1 unit is given for each degree Fahrenheit above the daily mean temperature when the mean temperature exceeds 75 degrees Fahrenheit 24 degrees Celsius.
How many vertebrae are in the neck of a giraffe?
A giraffe neck has 7 vertebrae, the same as other mammals, but the vertebrae are greatly elongated.
Who invented the electron microscope?
The theoretical and practical limits to the use of the optical microscope were set by the wavelength of light. When the oscilloscope was developed, it was realized that cathode ray beams could be used to resolve much finer detail because their wavelength was so much shorter than that of light. In 1928 Ernst Ruska, 1906 to 1988, and Max Knoll, 1897 to 1969, using magnetic fields to focus electrons in a cathode ray beam, produced a crude instrument that gave a magnification of 17, and by 1932 they had developed an electron microscope having a magnification of 400. By 1937 James Hillier, 1915 to 2007, had advanced this magnification to 7,000. The 1939 instrument Vladimir Zworykin, 1889 to 1982, developed gave 50 times more detail than any optical microscope ever could, with a magnification up to 2 million. The electron microscope revolutionized biological research. For the first time scientists could see the molecules of cell structures, proteins, and viruses.
Where did the first major oil spill occur?
The first major commercial oil spill occurred on March 18, 1967, when the tanker Torrey Canyon grounded on the Seven Stones Shoal off the coast of Cornwall, England, spilling 830,000 barrels, 119,000 tons, of Kuwaiti oil into the sea. This was the first major tanker accident. However, during World War II, German U-boat attacks on tankers. Between January and June of 1942, off the United States East Coast, spilled 590,000 tons of oil. Although the Exxon Valdez was widely publicized as a major spill of 35,000 tons in 1989, it is dwarfed by the deliberate dumping of oil from Sea Island into the Persian Gulf on January 25, 1991. It is estimated that the spill equaled almost 1.5 million tons of oil. A major spill also occurred in Russia in October 1994 in the Komi region of the Arctic. The size of the spill was reported to be as much as 2 million barrels, 286,000 tons.
What is gutta percha?
Gutta percha is a rubber-like gum obtained from the milky sap of trees of the Sapataceae family. Found in Indonesia and Malaysia. Once of great economic value, gutta percha is now being replaced by plastics in many items. although it is still used in some electrical insulation and dental work. The English natural historian John Tradescant, c. 1570 to 1638, introduced gutta percha to Europe in the 1620s. And its inherent qualities gave it a slow but growing place in world trade. By the end of World War II, however, many manufacturers switched from gutta percha to plastics, which are more versatile and cheaper to produce.
How many eggs does a spider lay?
The number of eggs varies according to the species. Some larger spiders lay over 2,000 eggs. But many tiny spiders lay 1 or 2 and perhaps no more than a dozen during their lifetime. Spiders of average size probably lay 100 or so. Most spiders lay all their eggs at one time and enclose them in a single egg sac. Others lay eggs over a period of time and enclose them in a number of egg sacs.
Why are eye transplants not available?
The eye's retina is part of the brain, and the retina cells are derived from the optic nerve in the brain. Retinal cells and the cells that connect them to the brain are the least amenable to being manipulated outside the body. Implantable cardioverter defibrillator monitors heart rhythms. When it senses irregular rhythms, it delivers shocks so the heart beats in a regular rhythm.
What material is used to make a tuning fork?
A tuning fork, an instrument that when struck emits a fixed pitch, is generally made of steel. Some tuning forks are made of aluminum, magnesium alloy, fused quartz, or other elastic materials.
What is cell culture?
Cell culture is the cultivation of cells, outside the body, from a multicellular organism. This technique is very important to biotechnology processes because most research programs depend on the ability to grow cells outside the parent animal. Cells grown in culture usually require very special conditions, e.g., specific pH, temperature, nutrients, and growth factors. Cells can be grown in a variety of containers, ranging from a simple petri dish to large-scale cultures in roller bottles, which are bottles that are rolled gently to keep culture medium flowing over the cells.
What is the life of a nuclear power plant?
While there is some controversy about the subject, the working life of a nuclear power plant as defined by the industry and its regulators is approximately 40 years. which is about the same as that of other types of power stations.
What are hormones?
Hormones are chemical messengers that are secreted by the endocrine glands into the blood. They produce a specific effect on the activity of cells that are remotely located from their point of origin. Hormones are transported via the bloodstream to reach specific cells, called target cells, in other tissues. Target cells have special receptors on their outer membranes that allow the individual hormones to bind to the cell. The hormones and receptors fit together much like a lock and key.
National Park Service established?
The National Park Service was created by an act signed by President Woodrow Wilson. 1856 to 1924, on August 25, 1916. Its responsibility was to administer national parks and monuments.
What are naval stores?
Naval stores are products of coniferous trees as pine and spruce. These products include pitch, tar, resin, turpentine, pine oil, and terpenes. The term naval stores originated in the 17th century when these materials were used for building and maintaining wooden sailing ships.
Which metal is the main component of pewter?
Tin at least 90%. Antimony, copper, and zinc may be added in place of lead to harden and strengthen pewter. Pewter may still contain lead, but high lead content will both tarnish the piece and dissolve into food and drink to become toxic. The alloy used today in fine quality pieces contain 91 to 95% minimum tin, 8% maximum antimony, 2.5% maximum copper, and 0 to 5% maximum bismuth, as determined by the European standard for pewter.
Which fungus may have played a role in the Salem witch trials?
The Salem witch hunts of 1692 may have initially been caused by an infestation of a microbiological poison. The fungus, Claviceps purpurea, commonly known as rice mud, produces the poison ergot. When ingested, this poison produces symptoms similar to the ones observed in the girls accused of being witches in Salem in 1692. Historians and biologists have reviewed environmental conditions in New England from 1690 to 1692 and have found that conditions were perfect for an occurrence of rice mud overgrowth. The weather conditions during those years were particularly wet and cool. Ryegrass had replaced wheat as the principal grain because wheat had become seriously infected with wheat rust during long periods of cold and damp weather. The symptoms of ergot poisoning include convulsions, pinching or biting sensations, stomach ailments as well as temporary blindness, deafness, and muteness.
When was paper recycling started?
Paper recycling was actually born in 1690 in the United States when the first paper mill was established by the Rittenhouse family on the banks of Wissahickon Creek, near Philadelphia. The paper at this mill was made from recycled rags.
The following chart indicates the top 5 states with their capacity for electricity generated by wind. Which states generate the highest percentage of electricity from wind?
The United States was able to generate more than 25,000 megawatts, MW, of electricity from the wind in 2008. This supplied an estimated 73 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity, which was enough to power about 7 million average American homes. Minnesota and Iowa both got over 7% of their electricity from wind energy.
Is hemlock poisonous?
There are 2 species known commonly as hemlock, Conium maculatum and Tsuga canadensis. Conium maculatum is a weedy plant. All parts of the plant are poisonous. In ancient times, minimal doses of the plant were used to relieve pain with a great risk of poisoning. Conium maculatum was used to carry out the death sentence in ancient times. The Greek philosopher Socrates was condemned to death by drinking a potion made from hemlock. It should not be confused with Tsuga canadensis, a member of the evergreen family. The leaves of the Tsuga canadensis may be used to make tea.
Why do some dentists treat the molars and premolars of children with sealants?
Sealants, a soft plastic coating applied to the tooth surface, can protect a child's first and second permanent molars from decay by filling in the pits and fissures where food and bacteria might otherwise accumulate. The plastic is hardened with a special light or chemical.
What are the symptoms of Guillain-Barré syndrome?
Guillain-Barré syndrome is an autoimmune disorder where the body's immune system attacks part of the peripheral nervous system. The immune system starts to destroy the myelin sheath that surrounds the axons of many peripheral nerves, or even the axons themselves. The loss of the myelin sheath surrounding the axon slows down the transmission of nerve signals, and muscles begin to lose their ability to respond to the brain's commands. The first symptoms of this disorder include varying degrees of weakness or tingling sensations in the legs. In many instances, the weakness and abnormal sensations spread to the arms and upper body. In severe cases, the patient may be almost totally paralyzed since the muscles cannot be used at all. In these cases, the disorder is life-threatening because it potentially interferes with breathing and, at times, with blood pressure or heart rate. Such a patient is often put on a respirator to assist with breathing and is watched closely for problems such as an abnormal heartbeat, infections, blood clots, and high or low blood pressure. Most patients, however, recover from even the most severe cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome. Although some continue to have a certain degree of weakness.
Are fingernails and toenails the same thickness?
No. Toenails are approximately twice as thick as fingernails.
What is the Very Large Array, VLA, and what information have we learned from it?
The Very Large Array, VLA, is one of the world's premier astronomical radio observatories. The VLA consists of 27 antennas arranged in a huge Y pattern up to 22 miles, 36 kilometers. Across roughly 1.5 times the size of Washington, D.C. Each antenna is 81 feet. 25 meters, in diameter. They are combined electronically to give the resolution of an antenna 22 miles. 36 kilometers, across, with the sensitivity of a dish 422 feet, 130 meters, in diameter. Each of the 27 radio telescopes in the VLA is the size of a house and can be moved on train tracks. In its 22nd year of operation, the VLA has been one of the most productive observatories. With more than 2,200 scientists using it for more than 10,000 separate observing projects. The VLA has been used to discover water on the planet Mercury, radio bright coronae around ordinary stars, microquasars in our galaxy, gravitationally induced Einstein rings around distant galaxies, and radio counterparts to cosmologically distant gamma-ray bursts. The vast size of the VLA has allowed astronomers to study the details of superfast cosmic jets, and even map the center of our galaxy.
When and where did the first blood bank open?
Several sites claim the distinction. Some sources list the first blood bank as opening in 1940 in New York City under the supervision of Dr. Richard C. Drew. 1904 to 1950, others list an earlier date of 1938 in Moscow at the Sklifosovsky Institute. Moscow Central Emergency Service Hospital, founded by Professor Sergei Yudin. The term blood bank was coined by Bernard Fantis, 1874–1940. Who set up a centralized storage depot for blood in 1937 at the Cook County Hospital in Chicago, Illinois.
What percentage of Earth's surface is forest area?
The world's total forest area is just over 4 billion hectares or 31% of the total land area. More than half of the world's forest areas are in the 5 most forest-rich countries: the Russian Federation, Brazil, Canada, the United States, and China.
How hard does the heart work?
The heart squeezes out about 2 ounces, 71 grams, of blood at every beat and daily pumps at least 2,500 gallons, 9,450 liters, of blood. On the average, the adult heart beats 70 to 75 times a minute. The rate of the heartbeat is determined in part by the size of the organism. Generally, the smaller the size, the faster the heartbeat. Thus women's hearts beat 6 to 8 beats per minute faster than men's hearts do. At birth, the heart of a baby can beat as fast as 130 times per minute.
What is an organ system?
An organ system is a group of organs working together to perform a vital body function. There are 12 major organ systems in the human body.
What is a moraine?
A moraine is a mound, ridge, or any other distinct accumulation of unsorted, unstratified material or drift, deposited chiefly by direct action of glacier ice.
What is the basic unit of the brain?
Neurons are the nerve cells that are the major constituent of the brain. At birth, the brain has the maximum number of neurons, 20 billion to 200 billion neurons. Thousands are lost daily, never to be replaced and apparently not missed. Until the cumulative loss builds up in very old age.
What is tropism?
Troism is the movement of a plant in response to a stimulus. The categories include chemotropism, a response to chemicals by plants in which uncurling of leaves may occur; gravitropism, formerly called geotropism, a response to gravity in which the plant moves in relation to gravity. Shoots of a plant are negatively geotropic, growing upward, while roots are positively geotropic. Growing downward, hydrotropism, a response to water or moisture in which roots grow. Toward the water source, paraheliotropism, a response by the plant leaves to avoid exposure to the sun. Phototropism, a response to light in which the plant may be positively phototropic. Moving toward the light source, or negatively phototropic, moving away from the light source. Main axes of shoots are usually positively phototropic, whereas roots are generally insensitive to light. Thermotropism, a response to temperature by plants. Thigmotropism or haptotropism, a response to touch by the climbing organs of a plant.
Which hurricane in the United States was the most destructive?
The economic loss caused by Hurricane Katrina is estimated at $100 to $150 billion, making it the costliest natural disaster in United States. The death toll for Katrina was less than 2,000, which is significant, although nowhere near the death toll of at least 8,000 during the Galveston hurricane in 1900. Katrina made landfall in Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana as a Category 3 hurricane with winds of 125 miles per hour, 201 kilometers per hour. On August 29, 2005, the coastal areas of Louisiana, including New Orleans, Mississippi, and Alabama, suffered extensive damage.
How many fatalities occur each year in the United States due to tornadoes?
During the past 30 years, 1979 to 2008, an average of 57 people were killed each year by tornadoes, nearly identical to the average number of people killed by lightning during the same time period. The 10-year average, 1999 to 2008, for deaths due to tornadoes was 63 people per year.